Joy. Uh, we are here from PINSA having an interview with you on your involvement with primary immunodeficiency. Joy, this is Wednesday evening, probably about 10 to 6. Tell me, how did you come to be involved with PINSA?
Hi, Anton. Thanks for this opportunity. I became involved with PINSA basically through my association with IPOPI very many years ago. And I went to an IPOPI conference in Rhodes Island, and then another one. I went to a couple more, and I met David Waters. He was the executive director of IPOPI, and he asked me if I would like to set up an association in South Africa, which I did. And so PINSA was constituted at the Red Cross Children's Hospital in 2001. And so we're 21 years old, and I became involved because my daughter has primary immunodeficiency. She's got autosomal recessive hyper IgM, and which is incredibly rare in terms of primary immunodeficiencies, but even more so with girls. So she's 1 in a billion. But that's how I came to be involved in PINSA, and I was on the board for many years, and then I've just had a 5-year sabbatical, and now I'm back as vice chair, as you know, and with pleasure.
Okay. No, sure. Tell me, if I may just stray off our formal questions, how did you actually get contacted by IPOPI or contact them?
Well, I was living in KwaZulu-Natal, and we had a couple there who had a little girl with primary immunodeficiency, and they wanted to set up an association, and they and I got hold of the PIA in the UK, Primary Immunodeficiency Association, and David Waters was involved there. And that is how we, that's where it really first began. And they were actually on carte blanche. We were all on carte blanche. I'm talking about 1991. And we were interviewed on carte blanche. And I'm just trying to remember their names. Okay. And yeah, so I was their secretary for the Didn't Survive.
You were on carte blanche in 91?
Yes, I think it was around about 1991. Rita Luntman interviewed us, and it was Sonia Wood and her husband who started an association, but it really it started and then it stopped. And then after that, it was David Waters who asked me to said IPOPI would fund the starting of the association. I think money was the problem in the early days, and IPOPI sorted that.
So that was probably about 10 years after that you actually started the association.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. Tell me, you've explained a bit of your experience. Do you have any other experience with chronic illnesses?
No.
And the impact it has on the family? So there's nothing underlying from historically in the family?
No, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And in fact, her father and I are both carriers. It was unbelievable that that this should have happened. Her father was Portuguese. He's since died, sadly. And he and I were oblivious to the fact that we were carriers. And in those days, of course, there was no genetic counseling or anything like that. I must say that I married him in 1973, and Gabby was only born in 1977. I really struggled to have a child, and anyway, she happened. But
the blessing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, but I can imagine it must have been an extreme challenge back in the day, because as you said, other than just gene therapy or gene counseling, just to get a doctor to identify with a immune deficiency in the 70s, early 80s?
Well, she was born in 77. She was diagnosed in 1980, and she was diagnosed correctly in Pinetown, actually. We were living in Pietermaritzburg, and she was diagnosed correctly. And we battled for many years with her having operations. She's had 36 surgeries. And in those days, there was polypectomies and grommets and so on and so forth, but all general anesthetics. And there was no information. There was no support group. We nearly lost her 2 or 3 times. She had cat scratch disease, and she ended up in a very, very sick little girl in Grace Hospital. And that's another story. But no, there was no support, no knowledge, no internet. But we had to lean very heavily on the medical profession. And I must say that I've always enjoyed a very good relationship with all the nurses and all her doctors over the years, because and I've learned to forge the relationships, because it's difficult, particularly in rare diseases, when you find out more than your treating doctor, and that can cause tension, and one has to navigate around that. And also navigate around professional ethics and what you share with other patients. So all of these things I had to learn, but it made me stronger.
No, I agree. So, so you also experienced the extreme struggles with various doctors moving from one to another, trying to get better care, better.
Not really. We were spot on with the doctors. She saw actually Professor Beatty at Red Cross Children's Hospital, and he gave the sort of the definitive diagnosis, and he was absolutely wonderful. Actually, for years he was a sort of oversight physician of her condition, and she was under Dr. Botha at Westville Hospital, who was also really amazing. Because in those days, well, here comes my first anecdote. You know, when she was 11 and she'd been on a camp and she had to be brought home early because she was running a high temperature. And I decided that this was enough. In fact, I decided it was enough after her 5th surgery when she was 2.5 years old. I said, no more surgeries. Well, famous last words, you know, she just had her 36. But she came back from this camp and she was running a temperature, and she spoiled her experience. So I decided that I was going to see the specialist, and that was Professor Puddifin, who was in Durban University of KwaZulu-Natal, and he wasn't allowed to see private patients. So I packed a picnic basket, a sleeping bag, pillows, one Saturday morning, and I went down with Gabby. And his secretary said, no, I'm so sorry, but the professor doesn't see private patients. So I said, well, I'm not leaving until he sees my daughter. And we're sitting going to sleep here. And anyway, he came out 30 seconds later. He must have heard the conversation. And it was he who put Gabby onto Polygam. And in those days, I had to sign an indemnity every time she had it. And it was very scary because we didn't know what the reaction would be, but we managed it. And she was on Polygam for many, many years, going into hospital in IVIG. And right through her teen years, right through until late 20s, in actual fact. And it saved her life. It saved her life, immunoglobulin therapy. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine you have many of those you can actually share.
Well, I also need to acknowledge, you know, the knockout mice that goes into the research, and all the people who donate blood and plasma, because without that, our community wouldn't be coping. But I will share another anecdote, if I may. I mean, she wasn't properly diagnosed until what she's, you know, the subclass diagnosis. I read an article saying that she was 21, that she wouldn't survive until she was past 25. I was actually on my way to a conference, and I don't remember the conference contents at all. The moment I got off the plane, because I read that on the way to the conference on the plane, I got off the plane and I got hold of the author of the article. And it turned out it was Gigi Notarangelo, who was quoted. And he is a hyper IgM specialist at Brescia in Italy. And I got hold of Gigi, and he said, if you can get yourself to Rhodes Island, I will draw Gabby's blood and I will give you the diagnosis, because it all depends on how far down the line she is in terms of her the immune deficiency. I'm not using medical terms now because we've got a general audience. And I got Gabby to Rhodes at great cost, and we both went and to the IPOPI conference. And he came, I went to him to draw the blood. He said, sorry, I can't draw it now. I'm leaving very early tomorrow morning. So I will get Elaine Fisher to draw it for you. We tried to get hold of Elaine, couldn't be found. Long short story is that neither of the doctors were available to draw her blood. It was an absolute farce. I had to run around the island the following day. We got the local doctor, in fact, who organized the conference, to draw her blood. We had the blood sent through to Brescia. I got an email from Gigi 3 days later to say, your blood's arrived, but it's too old. I can't use it.
Oh, wow.
that was, but he remains friends of ours. He's been wonderful to her over the years. And we ended up, she had the definitive diagnosis done by Andy Randy in Paris. I had blood sent over I got Gabby to London. We had blood sent over thanks to Matthew Hilbert to Andy Randy in Paris. And she's still, we met her face to face. She still knows all about Gabby and asks after her. Obviously, she's retired now. So I've got a long history with medics around the hyper IgM. Yeah.
Okay.
Fabulous people.
Tell me, I can imagine. It's really a wealth of stories that you can give us. Tell me, do you have any advice that you would give to new patients and their families?
Yes, I would. And that gives me to the final anecdote, where my daughter, when she was at UCT, put her head down and said, Mom, I can't do this illness anymore. And she constituted a polygam. And I said, well, we're not going to let it control us. And I watered the garden with the polygam, the flowers. I said, no, the flowers can grow. We're not going to let this disease control us, this illness. We don't call it a disease, this condition. And it was a changing point in our management, because she doesn't live her illness. She doesn't define herself by her illness. She leads as normal a life as she possibly can. She's never indulged herself. She's never taken time out or milked it. And our motto is just get on with it. Just get on with it. Look, we've had to manage it. I put her into a private school so she could access to the SAN if she was sick. I mean, I was full-time working mother. I couldn't stay at home. So we had to navigate around the challenges of managing a chronic illness. But she, to this day, you won't, she's not defined by her illness. And I think that my advice to any family is because it will affect everybody. It'll affect the other siblings. And if you can put together a structure of managing the illness, where you've got someone to go to with questions, you've got a support system, you've got doctors who you can trust, you're on the best treatment available, and that is worldwide. We've got excellent doctors here, but they have access to doctors elsewhere, which we've got through IPOPI and Jeffrey Modell Foundation and IDF. We've got access to the most superb doctors. And if you put together a package of management, it makes it manageable, because then you've got a cushion, and therefore your child can then take on the challenges that life will offer and throw. The teenage problems, I mean, don't we know about it? The transition where your child turns around and says, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't have an illness, I'm not doing it. I mean, it's common in chronic illnesses. you know, when you have that happen. So it's all been there, done that, and just wonderful support. And best thing, of course, is the advances in medical technology and treatment. I mean, our kids can't be better off. So yeah, it's positive, and you can reflect that in your management, and that will reflect in your child's management. I think that was the message that I would give.
No, definitely. Thanks for that. The gravel road of experience you've walked is definitely evident in talking to you. Because not all of us, we've all had our battles and strains. You've just experienced it from far longer with far less support and knowledge. So yes, we have such a vast amount of information we can pick up from you, and things have changed. To live with a chronic illness probably these days is a lot easier than back in the day.
Well, back in the day, we didn't have WhatsApp. We didn't have anything instant.
Yes, and the bad traits of Dr. Google.
Well,
which we've all
yes.
tried at some stage.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you want to put yourself into a spin, go to Dr. Google. It is a policy of mine that I only ever go to 3 sources. And the NIH, National Institute of Health in Bethesda. Gabby was there. They flew her over. They did apheresis. She was in hospital for a week. They've got enough of her DNA to last them 15 years, and that's thanks to Dr. Jane. But so the National Institute of Health, the British Medical Journal, the BMJ, and then anything to do with Merck. I won't go anywhere else for medical information. Of course, IPOPI and, you know, concerns that are directly involved with research to do with primary immunodeficiency, but I'm talking the general public, or what you get on the internet. And I'm very, very strict about that. I'm not going to put myself through sleepless nights unnecessarily. I've had enough of those in my life, and so has she.
I can imagine. So at the end of the day, is that what motivates you to assist newly diagnosed patients?
Yes. I'm 72 years old. I've only got X number of time in my life left, and I've got this knowledge base that's been hard won, and if I can share it, or share it to the benefit of other people, it would be very rude not to. I mean, I have no reason not to assist and help, and it's with pleasure, because I know the lonely journey, and how fantastic it was being able to lean on individuals. And that's why I started PINSA, so that we could offer each other mutual support. We walk this gravel road together, and so yeah, it's certainly nothing particularly noble. I just think it would be a waste for me not to give my experience, let other people benefit from my experience.
And for that, we are ever grateful. Joy, it was a pleasure talking to you, and hopefully we can use this interview to motivate others as well, other caregivers, other patients, to make the road easier. Because although I haven't walked as long a route as you, it is a lonely route out there, and without support, it makes it so much more.
Well, thank you, Anton. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.